Origin Unexplained.
This is Origin Unexplained, and today we're stepping away from shadowed corners and into the mind itself. Sometimes, the strangest terrain we'll ever explore isn't underground or otherworldly. It's psychological. Over the last decade, a particular kind of mental self-repair has swept across clinics, bookshelves, and social media feeds. So, it's called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and it's being sold as a universal answer to human suffering. It's the therapy you can do on your lunch break, the one that tells you to rewrite your thoughts, rewire your brain, and get back on track. But does it really reach the root of anything, or just polish the surface so you can function in a world that keeps breaking you down? Tonight, we're taking a closer look at what CBT really is, and how it works, and why it's both celebrated and criticized. All right, so let's start off with the fad and the fame of it. So, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has become the Starbucks of the mental health world everywhere, instantly recognizable and somehow trendy. Over the last 2 decades, CBT has exploded in popularity. And of course, it's been promoted as the go-to solution for everything from anxiety and depression to insomnia and eating disorders. Therapists use it, self-help books preach it, and even apps are built around it, okay? It's cost-effective, short-term, and structured, which makes it a favorite for insurance companies, of course, and busy professionals alike. So for many, CBT has become the safe mental health tool, practical, non-invasive, and easy to market. But we have the problem, too. It's now treated more like a fashionable fix than a form of therapy rooted in actual transformation. CBT didn't start out this way, but like many useful tools, it got packaged, labeled, and rolled out in mass. You know how that goes. And while that's helped some people to get access to support, it's also flattened the complexity of what CBT actually is and what it isn't. So too, what it is and how it works. So it is a psychological approach designed to help people change unhelpful thought patterns and behaviors. So in other words, like say I say something along the lines of, I start thinking in my head, oh God, what's taking him so long at the store? And I start running through all these scenarios and stuff like that. It will help you turn that around and, why are you thinking this way? Okay, granted, things have made you question, but there's no reason to think that way. And think logically. Well, maybe he ran into somebody at the store and was talking. Maybe he had to stop and fill the tank with gas. Or maybe you might think something along the lines, all right, I am attempting to walk in Walmart, number one place I think in the world that causes anxiety. And I'm just saying that. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. But I'm going in Walmart. I'm going to try to get through this. And by thinking I'm going to try, all of a sudden you get in there, the lights hit you, bam! The air is blowing in your face. The floor is glaring at you, and you're like, You want to turn right back around and walk out those doors. So instead of thinking like that, you think, I am going in. I'm going to get what I need to get. And I'm just going to get out. I know I'm going to go home, and everything's going to be fine. And then thinking like that helps with the anxiety. So it's based on the idea that our thoughts, emotions, and actions are connected, and that by changing one, we can influence the others. In real terms, CBT teaches you to identify distorted thinking, kind of like catastrophizing and mind reading or black and white thinking. Challenge those thoughts with evidence and replace them with more accurate, balanced ones. That process is usually combined with behavioral techniques, things like exposure therapy, journaling, goal setting, or developing new coping skills. So you kind of imagine it like a triangle. One corner is your thoughts, another is your feelings, and the third is your behavior. And if you change what you're thinking, you can often change what you're feeling and in turn, change what you do. So, some visual models even present CBT like a mental food pyramid, placing core beliefs like at the base, deep, often unconscious ideas you hold about yourself or the world. So it treats at the base with automatic thoughts in the middle, quick surface level thoughts that pop up, and behaviors at the top, what you actually do in response. The therapy typically, it involves worksheets, homework, and repetition because it's meant to train your brain over time, almost like rewiring a circuit through practice. So the benefits and the side effects, let's get into that and what works actually best. CBT has real strengths. It's structured, evidence-based, and goal-oriented. So for people dealing with mild to moderate anxiety, situational depression, or specific phobias, it can be incredibly effective. It can also be a great temporary tool for getting through a rough patch like a breakup, a job loss, or a period of high stress. Even if someone doesn't have access to long-term therapy, just learning how to reframe thoughts or build a new habit can be empowering. But, as with everything else, there are side effects. Not medical, but psychological. For people with deep trauma, chronic PTSD, an overused term lately, or complex emotional wounds, CBT can feel dismissive. It teaches people to challenge their thoughts, but if those thoughts are rooted in real unresolved pain, trying to quote-unquote correct them without healing the source can actually make someone feel worse. They may start blaming themselves for not feeling better, or feel like they're failing at therapy, kind of like the fad diets, right? CBT can also feel cold or mechanical to people who process emotion more intuitively or relationally. And some critics argue that CBT, when used as a quick fix, ends up patching symptoms without addressing the cause. So this is why it's important to say, if you're someone who doesn't carry a lot of long-term PTSD, good luck in this world, or emotional layering, CBT might be a great fit. If you're just trying to get through a difficult season or break a habit, CBT can give you the steps. But if you have a long personal history with trauma, abuse, or emotional neglect, you may need deeper work. It is a great tool, but it isn't the whole toolbox. So let's just get into the last bit of it with the brain and the science and the system. So scientific research shows that it can create a real measurable change in the brain. Functional MRI studies have found that after a course of it, patients with anxiety or depression show reduced activity in part of the brain that's the fear center, and increased regulation in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational thinking and control. I could go on to a whole section about the front part of the brain, but I won't go there. In other words, CBT seems to strengthen the part of your brain that says you're okay, and quiet the part that says panic. One study published in the Biological Psychiatry, Gold Apple, 2004, found that CBT changed brain activity in depressed patients in a way kind of similar to antidepressants, just through restructuring and behavior change. Another study from the Journal of Psychiatric Research, which was by Shiner in 2017, showed long-term effects on brain pathways involved in attention and emotion regulation. These aren't just soft claims. It has neurological backing. That said, it's worth thinking about how Big Pharma might feel about a therapy that doesn't rely on medication, right? CBT is a low-cost, low-tech, and doesn't require a prescription, meaning it doesn't generate the kind of profit that medication does. So, pharmaceutical companies may tolerate it, but it's rarely at the center of mainstream mental health campaigns. Why? Because there's more money in managing symptoms with pills than in helping people build a new neural pathway with thought, exercise, and repetition. That's not conspiracy. It's just capitalism. If you're curious to read more, search for CBT and Brain Changes in PubMed, or check out Neurobiology of Depression by Jay Lancinio and ML Wong. These sources dive deeper into how therapies like it can impact real biology and not just behavior. Now, before I go any further and end this, disclaimer. I am not a doctor or a licensed mental health professional. This episode is meant for educational purposes only. Please consult with a medical or psychological expert before making any decisions about your mental health care. And note here, cognitive behavioral therapy, well, it has reshaped the way people think about healing, but maybe it's done something else too. It's taught us that thoughts have power, which we're all beginning to understand now, but also it reminds us that changing thoughts alone isn't always enough. The mind is a complex instrument. You can tune it, but sometimes you have to look at who's playing it. As mental health becomes more commercialized, we need to remember that healing isn't a brand or a formula. It's a process. CBT can help you start that process, but the deeper work still belongs to you.
Time for the bloopers.
Go back to or 3, 2, 1. Or therapists use it. Okay, self-help books preach it. Go back to self-help 3. I am not a doctor. 3, 2, 1. This is Origin Unexplained. Thank you for listening, and remember, the mind can be the most mysterious landscape of all, because sometimes the strangest places aren't out there. They're in here. If you have a story you would like told, or you would like to be in a podcast telling your story, email us at originunexplained@gmail.com and check the spelling on that, because there's no E in there.
Origin Unexplained.